The new Weslie and William Janeway Institute in Economics is going to invest in transforming economic research, disseminating frontier work in the Faculty of Economics. Bill is an alumnus of the PhD program at Cambridge. I'm pleased to say he's joining me now. So, Bill, you've been closely involved with INET, the predecessor of the Janeway Institute. How's it going to transition and what's it going to be looking at? Start off with, if you would please, with a bit of history.
Well, the basis and the context for creating the new institute is, of course, the creation more than a decade ago of the Cambridge INET Institute. I was and am a co-founder and board member of the Institute for New Economic Thinking, based in New York. And as it was beginning to explore partnerships with research universities as distinct from funding individual scholars' research projects, I introduced the idea to Cambridge, and specifically to Hamid Saborian, who was then chair of the faculty. Two aspects of the creation of Cambridge INET are really important. First, it was a collaborative effort within the faculty, not imposed upon the faculty. The Institute became an engine that operated along multiple dimensions, deeply embedded within the faculty. First, it supported, indeed, the research programs of members of the faculty along the themes that had been originally defined and which evolved over time. Second, it funded a visitors program that brought outstanding economists from around the world to Cambridge for periods of time with active engagement. Third, it funded a postdoc program that brought young scholars with their PhDs for a 3-year program in which they could apply themselves to peer-reviewed journal articles, building their track record as scholars. The remarkable quality and creativity of what has been going on in microeconomics, some of that represented by what is known as behavioral economics, but more broadly, including network economics, the influence of peer pressure on preference formation and decision-making by participants in markets. So it's an extraordinarily exciting time to be an economist, to be participating in this reconstruction of a discipline which had reached such an abstract level of theory, particularly at the macro basis, that it had decoupled itself from what was really going on in markets and institutions. So that's all the basis for why it seemed to my wife and me to be a extremely high priority, not just to continue and extend, but to perpetuate the Cambridge INET Institute.
We briefly touched on then how macroeconomics has become pretty much decoupled with real world economics. Bill, why is it so important that the economic theory that we develop actually shows its impact on the way people and society live their lives?
Well, absolutely, because macroeconomics and the models that are developed inform policy decisions, policy debates, policy discussions. There's a famous moment in the lead up to the global financial crisis when a great macroeconomist, monetary economist named Raghuram Rajan raised the question as to whether the digitalization of financial assets, the generation of derivative securities, which had proliferated extraordinarily in just 5 to 10 years, whether that was reducing financial and macroeconomic risk, or whether it was increasing it. And at that point, a great economist said that Rajan sounded like he was a bit of a Luddite for questioning the value of technological innovation. Of course, Rajan was absolutely right. But the dominant theory at the time, did not allow, by construction, the possibility that Rajan might be right. So that will never happen again. I do believe that we have been, if you pardon the expression, vaccinated against that kind of abstract decoupling of theory from the real world.
What sort of research would you like to see the new institute be doing in terms of the digital economy?
Digitalization has meant extraordinary increases in the generation and capture of data about behaviors, individual, group, collective, social behaviors, and obviously, most importantly, market behaviors. Economics has always been the data-rich social science. And it has been, as I mentioned before, a pioneer in applying to the sort of data economists deal with more and more sophisticated, powerful techniques for cutting through the sea of correlations, most of which are completely false, that have no causal bearing at all. They're coincidental. But machine learning, the algorithms of machine learning, what they do is identify correlations. They do not define causality. It goes with trying to come to grips. And this is the last area that I think really I'm hopeful Cambridge and the new institute will play a role in exploring, is this recognition of the extreme increase in inequality of income and wealth, and that has consequences for macroeconomics and for specific industries and markets. And the exploration first of the sources of rising inequality over the last 40 to 50 years and the consequences of that inequality, and finally, perhaps, alternative approaches towards working to reduce that inequality is I think, absolutely central. So more work on that.
But for those people working in the financial markets today, how important is it that they not only have a good solid grounding in economics, but also that they study at a postgraduate level, and as an alumnus, they stay in touch with the Faculty of Economics so that they stay up to date with the latest economic theory?
Well, I think it's critically important, and it's a major benefit of the digital revolution, that the friction involved in staying connected has been reduced so radically. We saw this during the months, particularly the first 6 to 8 months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Cambridge was one, not the only one, but Cambridge was one that was able to mobilize its faculty to deliver both research that was absolutely based on what was happening virtually in real time, but also to communicate that research to the alumni of Cambridge, as well as more broadly through external media channels. I think that is a great benefit, and one that we will have learned from.
So Bill, finally, it's been great talking to you, but can you really sum up what's your ambition for the new institute, and how should it stand out as a distinctive seat of research?
Cambridge INET Institute stood out as a jewel in INET's crown. It was seen by the INET board, by the INET staff, as one of the really distinctive contributions that INET had made in its first decade. And that contributed mightily to our motivation, as I say, to perpetuate the work of that institute and its role within the Cambridge Faculty of Economics.
Thanks, Bill. Really good talking to you. That's been a fascinating insight into the new institute. I'm sure it's going to make a very dramatic mark into the world of economic research.
Okay. Thank you very much, Julian.